There are many different attractions within Idaho. With a rich history, there are an abundance of tales to be told. However, many go unheard. These stories derive from the haunted anomalies and sightings. Southern Idaho, along with parts of eastern Idaho, are thick with these untold legends. Souls, trapped in time, to lonely wanderers haunt the region, their account ready to be told. A round trip through these locations shall revive the forgotten, stories to be heard anew, the recollection of Idaho's lost souls. Located south of Burley, in a small town of Oakley, lays this center for the performing arts, Howls Opera House.
The building was actually built by Benjamin P. Howls, who was a circuit judge. He also owned a bunch of cattle. And so when he had cowboys that were finished feeding the cattle, they would come and work on building this building. And the building was actually started in 1904, and it was finished in 1907. The building expense was $22,000 to build this building. If you build that today, it would be considerably more than that. So in order for him to be able to bring the arts to town, he would go to Minidoka to catch the train as it came through. And he would get the performers off of the train that were going either to Washington, Oregon, or on the other direction back to Salt Lake. And they would perform their shows for 3 or 4 nights. People would come to the show. Then when he got through with the shows, he would load them back up, by the way, on his horse and buggy is how they got here. And they put him on the horse and buggy, and he would take them back to Minidoka to catch the train.
Legends say a ghostly actress occasionally makes a stage appearance, and the founder keeps watch to make sure productions continue and his legacy lives on.
Well, I personally haven't experienced a ghost. Now, one of our board people, he thinks that he has heard ghosts, but he thought it was his son. He was in here also, but he went outside, and his son was not in the building. He was outside. So I don't know that we can verify that it was a ghost. But you know, if you're in here cleaning and doing things that need to be done, sometimes you'll hear a noise. And that could be anything rubbing something else, you know, or doing something that would be construed as a ghost if it was heard right. But I don't think we really have ghosts, unless it would have been B.P. Howls coming in here to see what we're doing.
Albion State Normal School. The Albion College, or Normal School, as some might call it, has always been a place that people say they feel or sense ghosts. The college was investigated by a paranormal group. Scott Bryan, a professional paranormal investigator and president and founder of the Southeast Idaho Paranormal Organization, talked about his experience at the college. He says Albion is where he saw his first full-bodied apparition. In 2010, he was investigating with his paranormal group.
You always know when you're going to have an amazing investigation when you see a ghost 10 minutes after arriving.
They were in the largest building, and though he was not expecting any paranormal is exactly what he got.
Her skin was white and smooth, yet it appeared to be hard and dry, like hard plaster, cold and still. Her face was long and oblong with a pointy chin and a nose that ran the length of the eyes, extending to a small slit of a mouth. Her hair was a dirty blonde and it held in a curl down to her shoulders. But the most striking feature was an enormous flat white collar. It could have been a uniform for anything from a nurse to a sanitation worker. I wondered why she would want to remain where she was, out of place and so odd. I often remind myself, maybe I was the intruder, and she was just curious, like a questioning glance at a new neighbor. She quickly peeked at me from behind an old doorway, beginning one of the stairways up to the ground level. I gasped for a breath, only to find my lungs unable to comply. I tried to say something, but had no air to make intelligible sounds. The others could tell that an event had occurred because the air had changed and an excitement like static electricity wafted through the air. The next stairway, she was there glaring at me through a window. I jumped and flailed my arms. It was clear it was time to leave. I do not know why she was stalking me, and I did not want to find out. I did go back in the building that night many times, but I did not see the woman again.
Ammon Park. To most people, Ammon Park may look like the average park. People walk their dogs, children run and play. However, there is one child that people see playing there more often than a child should. People say a little girl in a blue dress swings on the playground at Ammon Park in Pocatello. However, when one tries to get a better look at her, she disappears. Others say that they have seen a flash of blue, but no little girl. Some have speculated that this spirit may be that of a little girl who may have perished in a tool shed located on the park grounds. The latched shed door has been known to open on its own, with no wind blowing whatsoever. One visitor said she was locked in this shed with a friend by unseen hands when they were young. They were playing inside when the door closed and locked without any explanation. They say that it took quite a while for another group of kids to come along and hear them shouting to let them out. These kids, however, reported that the latch had been flipped firmly over the catch that holds the door shut. Some paranormal investigators have conducted multiple investigations in the park, leaving the vicinity with evidence they could only explain as being an affirmation of a ghost. Some of them say that they saw her, describing her as having brown hair just below the shoulders and wearing a dress, baby blue in color with white lace. They say they feel that she was killed there, either in a little tool shed or in the vicinity of the park. At one point during their exploration, they felt that she was hiding by a tree, but upon investigation of that tree, felt strongly that they were intruding and that the little girl wanted them to leave that area. They say that they decided to leave and felt that she was following them. They had the distinct feeling that she wanted them to stay in the park, but away from her tree. These investigators reported that they did not want her to follow them back to their homes, so they kindly asked her to stay there, and then they left. The little girl in the baby blue dress plays at the park in a game of constant hide and seek. There, she waits out of the corner of your eye to share her tale for those who seek it. Our last stop takes us to an old tuberculosis hospital located in Gooding, Idaho. The building was established in 1920 and originally used as a dormitory for the Albion College. When the college shut down in 1938, the building was donated to the Methodist Church. Short years later, the church gave it to the state of Idaho to develop a tuberculosis hospital.
So it was a university originally,
And the building that is still there originally was where the gymnasium was. The university lost funding and it became the hospital. And what it was actually, when it was the hospital, is the dorms for the staff, is who actually lived in there. And when it was the gymnasium, all those rooms that became the small rooms like it is now were just open. The main building, it was just a huge gym that went 3 stories high. Many claim to have been touched by the deceased, and there have been several reports of footsteps heard in vacant halls, unexplained whispers, and apparitions of a woman and a young girl together, and an old man in a white coat alone. The best story I have for the first time that I lived there is Ryan was a baby. He was about 18 months old, and he was a crier at night. When he would go to bed, it would be hours of him crying. And so where he shared a room with me as a baby, and where our room was, then there was a hallway, and then we had a living room that was just for like a little TV room. And so I had spent a few hours trying to get him to go to sleep, and he was not settled, but I decided I needed a break. So I just left him in his crib. It was a safe crib. And I went over and sat in the living room and watched TV. At some point, I was in the room by myself, and then I went downstairs and like got a sandwich or a drink or something, I don't know, and did some things downstairs. Came back up and went to check on Ryan. No more crying. So I thought, oh good, he's probably fallen asleep. I walk in there and look, and he is sound asleep in the crib, and he is tucked in. The sheet is folded down over the blanket. His bed wasn't made like this. Babies, you don't really make their beds. They just have a crib and they have a blanket. But this blanket was tucked in tight, and it was like, it's funny because when I tell this story, people are like, oh, like a nurse would make a bed. And I'm like, oh, maybe so. My son he played football and had the football team over for overnight. And one of the kids was from exchange student from Belgium, and he's like, oh cool, it's haunted, let's take a tour of the place, it's so great. And so the boys were all like getting their cell phones out and gonna walk around the building in the dark, and he's like, if this place is haunted, I can take a picture behind my head right now and there'll be a ghost. And he took a picture with his cell phone, and we'll have the picture for you, but there is clearly a form that looks very human in kind of a shadow type form. I think there's definitely something there in that building. I don't think, whatever it is, I'm not afraid of it. It's not fearful. The building itself, it's just a spooky old building, but is it actually haunted? I don't know. I think that if you're a person who believes that those kind of things can happen and you go there, you'll probably see something. But if you're a person that doesn't believe in that and doesn't accept that, you probably won't see anything. So, I definitely saw things and felt things, but there's plenty of people who didn't, so.